I know something you don't know. Ready to hear it? Iowa State is winning 10 games again this season. Now, you probably want to know why. Well, who won the Super Bowl last year? The Philadelphia Eagles. Who was the head coach? Nick Sirianni. Nick Sirianni and Matt Campbell, best of friends. We're talking about everything Matt Campbell's learned from Nick Sirianni today on Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to you for being here every single day, making this your first watch or listen of the day. I appreciate it more than you know. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcasting platform, be sure to hit subscribe so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state. Today, we are talking about Matt Campbell and his relationship with Nick Sirianni, what that's going to mean for Iowa State football this upcoming season. I actually think it will be a huge it's a big deal. All right. And we'll obviously break down the further intricacies of that first. Then we're going to dive into Rocco Becht or Brock Purdy. Very interesting story that Matt Campbell told at Big 12 Media Days. We need to dissect this further. And trust me, this is not like some wild thing. I think this actually has major implications for Iowa State football down the road. It's just stemming off of this one story. As soon as he said this, I got really excited to share this on today's episode. And then finally, we're going to take a little bit of a peek into the running back meeting room, take a look at who's been performing well this fall and spring and really all this offseason, and learn a little bit about how Jake Landry kind of runs his ship out of North Dakota State, obviously now with Iowa State, but first year. And boy, we might have something here. Can't wait to dive into all that and more. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. And also, quick shout out to everyone who's hit subscribe. We're almost at 1,000. Let's do it before Ireland, huh? Let's just try to throw that in there. All right, let's talk about Matt Campbell and Nick Sirianni. This isn't something a lot of people talk about very often. I think when a lot of people think of Matt Campbell, they think of Toledo, probably. Obviously was there in 2009 and ended up leaving in 2016 for Iowa State. I think that's where most people kind of put Matt Campbell, if it's not Iowa State. However, if you go way, way back to 1998, Matt Campbell's first year playing football, I guess is where it is on Wikipedia here. I assume this is college only. Pittsburgh. Wait, we went too far back. Hold up. Come back a little bit. Mount Union, 1999 to 2002. Very interesting time. Not a very some people know about this team. Okay. And if you know about this team, comment down below, tweet at me, because you guys are the real ones. You guys are the super deep fans here. But this isn't, I don't think, super common knowledge. Matt Campbell played on this Mount Union team and also actually coached for them in 2005 and 6. But there were a lot of really good future coaches on this Mount Union team, one of which being Nick Sirianni. So really stemming a lot of this off of an interview that Matt Campbell had with Big 12 media at the Big 12 Media Days. And he was talking about his relationship with Nick Sirianni, and this came up. And so I thought this was worth mentioning, that they do have a long-time relationship. This isn't just, the greatest coach in the Big 12, arguably all of college football, and the current greatest coach in NFL right now at this moment, the reigning Super Bowl champ, just getting together and being like, hey, we should maybe team up because you're good at what you do and I'm good at what I do. We can make each other better. No, these two know each other and have known each other for a long time. So before we dive into all of the intricacies of what's been allegedly talked about and done and said and whatnot, this has been a thing for a while. And so I think that's, worth mentioning, because it shows that, iron sharpens iron a little bit here, right? This is kind of cut from the same cloth type of deal. So the big one we've talked about with Matt Campbell and Nick Sirianni is the conversations that Matt Campbell has kind of stirred up and asked these NFL coaches about surrounding the Ireland game. Now, Nick Sirianni and the Eagles aren't the only ones that Matt Campbell has asked. He's talked about this many times before. Basically, anybody who's gone overseas, he's asked a lot of questions. What did that look like for you guys? How'd you lead up? How'd you come off of it? All those kinds of things, very, very important. And it feels like Matt Campbell and co. are doing their due diligence and figuring out what's the best way for Iowa State to attack this Dublin Ireland game, because this is maybe the biggest game of the year, potentially, depending on how you look at it. I've done my top 5 most important games, and this is in the top 5 every single time. It's just like, where do you want to put it? Do you want to put it at 1? Do you want to put it at 5? Like early in the year, late in the year? It depends on how you weigh everything, right? I think it's important to note that you're going overseas. You got to come back. You're starting your conference slate before your non-conference slate, and it's like a momentum game, right? So like there's all these pieces to it. It's a very important game. I love that Matt Campbell and company are really doing what it feels like needs to be done to get a win in Ireland, right? However, I did think it was interesting to say that last year in May, Matt Campbell went out and watched some Philadelphia OTAs, did some watching, did some observing. I immediately went, okay, this needs to be talked about, because who won the Super Bowl last year? Obviously, the Philadelphia Eagles, like a very good team, but also very well coached. I wonder if Matt Campbell picked up a few things, because you're constantly learning, right? So to say that Matt Campbell going into last season or 2 seasons ago knew everything about coaching, or even the same about Nick Sirianni, like it doesn't make sense. That's just not true. I guess I can't say it's not true, but it's pretty unlikely that it's true. So the thought that Matt Campbell is like hanging out around the Philadelphia Eagles and being like, hey, how are we approaching this? Like, how are we watching how they do this and seeing what we can maybe do differently here? This makes me excited. And I know that to some of you, this is like not like groundbreaking news. Okay. I understand that. I just think it's worth chatting about that. There is one of the greatest coaches in college football in Ames, like genuinely, because we've seen it on the field, of course, right? Like this we know, and we've talked about the accolades of Matt Campbell many times this offseason, because he's going to go to the Bears, and he's ranked way too low here, and he's ranked really rightfully so at 1 in this ranking, and what do you do? They like we all have talked many times and have looked it up and probably just spent free time looking at Matt Campbell's coaching history. But also we got to know, like, he's got connections with the NFL, obviously with, Nick Sirianni and I'm sure other colleagues, but like everyone trying to get him to work for the NFL as well. So that's something that I think a lot of people might sleep on. His network is really solid. Of course, he's one of the greatest coaches of all time. You would assume that. And so for the future, like, how can you get better every single year? Well, you model, honestly, the ever evolving college football game that's getting closer and closer to NFL. You start to model your coaching after those NFL coaches. We might have one of the greatest coaches in the next 10 years, like a Nick Saban level, right? And I do think that Iowa State football is going on that trajectory. I genuinely think that Iowa State football is like headed in that direction. So really what I wanted to say here was, it's really cool that Matt Campbell and Nick Sirianni played football together. It really is. I think it's very important to talk about Matt Campbell talking with Nick Sirianni about the Ireland game and traveling overseas and playing football, and how do you come off of that game and how do you handle those next couple of weeks. I think it's also very notable that he has and maybe does go out and watch the Philadelphia Eagles run some OTAs and learn consistently as a coach. And that down the road, he could be one of, if not the greatest coaches in all of college football. But like, you have to have the team to back it. And that's what we're going to talk about next, because I truly, genuinely, really, authentically, 1000% think that that's where Iowa State football is headed. And this, what we're about to talk about, is one of the main reasons. So don't go anywhere. We're talking about it right here after this. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping, and that's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to game time, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Me personally, it is so important to know exactly what I'm going to be seeing from my seat, and Game Time nails that with their panoramic seat view. I'm also a huge fan of their zone deals that pick the best seats in your section for you. Game Time, they really got it right with this one. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, we got to talk about this. This story from Matt Campbell is electric. Like, genuinely, you're here with Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I don't know how else to put this. When I heard this story, it was like I was struck by lightning. My fingertips started to like kind of tingle, like kind of like felt like I was floating a little bit. Like my spine was like, maybe it was actually a little bit bad for me because I couldn't believe it. This was true electricity. And I think that this shows the trajectory of Iowa State athletics is only up and to the right. I think for you guys, that would be like this. Yeah, we're only up and to the right. And there is no end in sight. I'm a poet and I didn't even know it. All right, let's talk about what the story is and why this is so important here. So Matt Campbell at Big 12 Media Days is telling this story about Rocco Becht. And obviously the guy's asking the questions, rightfully so. Rocco Becht having one of the greatest years last year. And what's he going to do this year? And how'd you find Rocco at 3-star coming out of high school and blah, 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 blah. This story is Matt Campbell's response. It's effectively saying that they had 4 quarterbacks watching, they were watching the film for these 4 quarterbacks, and Rocco wasn't one of them. And they didn't really know where they were going to go with their recruitment. They were, not really, it sounded like from the story, not really wowed by any of the guys on the screen. And so Matt had first, wow, we are not on a first name basis. I apologize, Matt Campbell. Coach Campbell had seen Rocco's film, which I'm not really on a first name basis with him either, but Mr. Becht's film a week prior, allegedly, and said, you know what, let's throw this guy up on the screen here. And so then they started comparing him, and this is the very key part to the story, to Brock Purdy his junior year. And immediately they knew this is our guy. All right. And then, you get on the phone with him and you learn, this is how he works mentally. This is how he works outside the field. This is what his family's like. This is where his values lie. And it's like a match made in heaven. Rocco Becht, Iowa State national championship coming right down the pipe. Okay. This much we know. It's very clear. However, the important nugget to take out of this story, the cowboy boot out of the McNugget box, if you will, is that there is going to be a record of excellence at Iowa State that we can base recruitments off of to build the program up. This is a first-hand, direct story supporting the evidence that as you get better, right? There's exponential to how good you get over time for multiple different reasons, right? You're good because you get better because you've brought in great players because you're good, right? So as you go from a 5-win consistently to a 7-win consistently to a 9-win consistently to a national championship contender consistently. Once you move up those ranks, you recruit different levels of players just via their perception of the school. So when you're a 5-win program and you're barely making bowl games, you're probably not going to be recruiting bringing in a lot of 5 stars without reaching out really, really early. Their perception of your school just isn't exactly great. Let's put it that way. And that's, I guess, just my guess on the situation. I don't know. This kind of based a little bit on my college football 26 Dynasty, but obviously that's not very common knowledge. Once you move into consistently a bowl game, now you're getting a little bit higher level of talent coming towards the school, immediately thinking oh, this is a place I would like to play. Once you move up to that 9-win, 10-win, you're kind of pushing for conference championships. Now the best in the region are really wanting to come and play for a conference title or best across country. And as you move into that national championship contender caliber team consistently, the best example of this recently would be in Alabama. Everyone would like to play for Alabama. Everyone would like to win a national championship. So that's kind of how you move up those ranks. So Matt Campbell has taken this Iowa State program from the 5-ish win program range to now we are in, on the precipice of being a consistent double-digit win team or program. But I think we're much more towards that 7, 8, 9 consistently win program level. And with 3 bowl game wins under his belt, like it doubles the school's total. So I think Matt Campbell's elevating the program. But to take the story that Matt Campbell told this step further, you now have the blueprint. You now have the success from the prior years that when you're doing these major recruitments, you can build off of your past. You don't have to reevaluate film every single year like it's the first time you're clicking play on a video, right? You can go back and say, what did Breece Hall look like at this time in his career? What did Will McDonald? What did Rocco Beck now? And that's the point, is it goes from Brock Purdy to we base Rocco Beck maybe off of that a little bit. Who are we evaluating next? What do we see from Rocco Beck and Brock Purdy game film that is reflected in this future, recruits or potential recruits film? So that's how this builds, right? You build success year to year, and I do think that Iowa State is very much in the running to be a 10-win program again this year. Absolutely. It's not bare minimum, but I think it's very much in their cards. We've gone through the schedule. We've gone through the opponents. We've gone through, the bye spacing and all of it. I think it's absolutely possible. Very doable. Just got to stay healthy, knock on wood, and boom, all of a sudden, Iowa State 10-win team. That did not sound like wood. Anyways, you understand the point. I think that we are starting to get to where the players as well we can base future players off those past players, right? And you've got, especially now with what the landscape is looking like with the transfer portal and NIL, you've got the culture to bring in the right guys as well. So everything seems to be lining up perfectly for Iowa State football. That is my great takeaway from this, because yes, they are getting better. They are getting more wins, right? They're winning more bowl games. Good. That's awesome. That's great. I'm not downplaying that at all. We're really cementing in the culture. We're really nailing down what it means to be a Cyclone, which we've kind of known for a long time, but there is no doubt. There is no doubt. And we're going to talk about that a little bit here in this next segment, but that's another really key part because of what the landscape of college football looks like now. In my opinion, I think that's very, very important. Finally, you're now able to, because of the greatness of the years past, this isn't something you could just do your second year in college as a coach or whatever, right? Like you can compare prospects to random players across the country that have been great, but they are not the ones in your system. And they're not the ones that you game planned for or with. Now we're at the point where you can take a look at past players that have been great and are in the NFL now and come play for Iowa State because it's the greatest place on planet Earth for all of you prospects out there. You can compare those guys' film from when they were in high school or wherever they're at in their journey, if it's transfer portal or whatever, to the players you're trying to bring into your building. And you can now kind of be a little bit of like, this is what we're expecting here. This is what we might get from this guy. You can really build a very strong program from the inside out. And you don't, to say you don't necessarily have to mold so many guys feels not exactly right, but maybe you just know what you're getting from more guys. Does that make sense? I think this was a huge story. To me, this immediately I was shooketh, if you will. To hear that that was part of the process in selecting Rocco, because that means for years to come that we're picking the right guys. We just are. I think in the next 5 years, Iowa State will have 2 minimum Big 12 championship titles. Minimum. In football, of course. Basketball, probably more like 4, maybe 5. Maybe we get them all. Either way, let me know what you guys think. Do you think this is as big a deal as I do? Because genuinely, not even joking. I was like, I kind of need to move around a little bit, get up, do a little jiggy, because this feels major. This feels big, 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 big time. So let me know in the comments down below or on Twitter at Nick_Marv, X, whatever you like to call it. Let's pivot a little bit and talk about the running backs for this current year. We're not talking about guys from the past or the future. We're staying right here in the moment. It's coming up right here after this. Jake Landry, head coach of the running backs for Iowa State. Not head coach of the entire team, but I guess you could say he's the head coach of the running backs. You're here with Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Met with the media last week. I was on KXNO chatting it up with Miller and Condon. They brought this to my attention. Of course, I was going to do my due diligence, but we had Farmageddon Friday coming up, and they were like, "Hey, have you seen this?" And I was like, I'm on my lunch break, so no, but later I will. So I went and watched it, and this is awesome. I'm just gonna call it how it is. I mean, just plain and simple. First off, we got a guy, Jake Landry. The way this guy speaks and the way this guy conveys his points is awesome. Like, what's the best word for this? The one thing I took away from this was, yes, there was a lot of coach speak. I think Jake Landry, and no hate to Jake Landry at all, talks the most similar to a person who is trying to to portray a coach, if that makes sense. Have you ever seen those comedy videos where they're acting as if they're a coach at a press conference? That's exactly how Jake Landry talks. Literally word for word. Some of his responses, I was like, that sounds like it was like made up as a joke for how coaches speak. So yes, there is a lot of that in there, but Jake Landry had a quote answering, I believe it was about Abu Sama, saying that now the vibe, like everyone understands, the meeting room is just as important as practice. When he not only this line, but this whole answer, when he laid this out, I really started to realize just how much better Iowa State might be this season, and as long really as Jake Landry is here, but even after. So basically forever. Could this be one of the most important hires in Iowa State history? Very much possible. Why though? Why? It sounds like Jake Landry is raising the bar of not only the running backs, but the entire program. But obviously starting kind of with the running backs. When talking about how important, practice is and the meeting rooms, it sounds like it's like you're just constantly on, which is, I felt like maybe how it always should have been. I will admit, in high school, we didn't really have meetings or meeting rooms. We more had like a film study once a week. We had a weight room. We had a practice field. We had a game field. We had a locker room. I think we had an equipment room. Like, we didn't really have meeting rooms, so it's hard to really tell what the vibe of a meeting room would be. We had an area on the practice field where like the wide receivers practiced. Is that the meeting room? I don't really know what this means. But to get an idea of what this, like, to put your headspace there and kind of imagine what it would be like, I could see how this can get out of control really, really quickly, and how you would have to kind of grab the room and be like, this is what we're doing. Point blank period. This is the facts. We're not getting away from this. And it sounds like Jake Landry has completely taken this room of the running backs and been like, and this is just completely my interpretation, but basically told them, like, we are going to be the reason that this team wins games. So buckle in. That's kind of the thing I took away from his press conference. There was no messing around. Like, there was just straight-faced, this is cut and dry. Like, I don't know. I love the way that Jake Landry ran his ship. And so looking at a few of the players that were laid out, obviously Hansen and Sama are the two that everyone is thinking about. Who is going to get the lion's share of the carries? Is there like situation? Is there a third down back? Is there an every down back? Like, what exactly is going on with those two? But also Aiden Flora and River Peppers, Dylan Lee, a couple of other guys that are getting some attention from the guys in Ames asking these questions. From my understanding of what Jake Landry threw out and my interpretation of basically what was coach speak, we're in a really good spot in the running back room. We really just are. It sounds like there has been an increase in true due diligence, true care, true love for the game that these running backs have this season. The way he is putting it now, of course, this is his first year of the program, so maybe that's why. But the way he's putting it is, it's like they really turned it up to 11, But why not just make it 10? Because it goes to 11. Like, they have turned it to the next level here. And so how does that look? Well, you've got Abu Sama staying, and working with Coach Landry on all of the fundamentals, all of the everything's the ins, the outs, the inner workings of the offense. And that was really something he kind of repeated over and over. Jake Landry did, Coach Landry, about all these guys, is that they really worked on learning what the whole offense is doing. This is something that I think tight ends probably learn more than, other than quarterbacks, more than anybody else. You're going to see it a little bit with wide receivers. You're going to see it a little bit with the offensive line to some extent, but it's really kind of like the tight ends and the wide receivers, I think, are the first two that comes to mind here. When you think of when you're back in the day playing football, what's the first thing you learn? What you're doing. Okay. If it's bootleg week, do I have a comeback, or do I have a slant, or do I have a post? Or if you're the running back, am I blocking left? Am I blocking right? Am I taking a fake handoff here? Am I actually getting the ball? Like, what is going to happen on this play? What do I need to do? Then you take it to the next level, and you need to know what is going on the play everywhere else, so you can better understand the motives of the other 10 players on the field, and you could do your part to help them achieve their goal. Thus, the team succeeds. Right? That is kind of what happens in the progression of a mental side of a football player. So a wide receiver who knows, well, I've got a post on this route, or maybe let's say I've got a fade on this route. It's more of a clear out route than anything. They understand that's where they're supposed to go. They, however, see a massive hole in the middle of the field mid-route. If they knew what everyone else was doing, they wouldn't go to the middle of the field, because they know what their route is doing to try to help the team win. And let's say in this case, it's a clear out route. It's not really there to, I mean, if it gets open, it gets open, but no one's really looking at it anyway. There's probably some sort of an out or a flat or whatever beneath them. But there's also a guy coming across in the post. So if he runs a post, now you've got two guys in the dead center of the field, either going to run into each other or that can easily be covered by one safety. You don't want that. You don't want that. And so that's what we're seeing out of these running backs is they're learning what everyone is doing on the field. What does that mean? Who's the unblocked cat? Who's the guy who's left? Where is the hole supposed to be? And where could it be because of what everyone else is trying to accomplish? What does the formation look like? What does the defense set up in response to that offensive formation look like? What does that likely mean? What does that defensive setup mean for the offensive? Like, it's layers. Okay, we're going Shrek mode here. You can think onions, you can think yogurt parfaits, because who doesn't love a good yogurt parfait, right? I don't know why that word came out of my mouth so odd, because trust me, I love parfaits. That was a weird situation. Point is, this running back room really might have it. And I got on a bunch of different tangents here, so I didn't really get to nail in all these big points. But like Aiden Flora has provided huge value on special teams, so I think it's really being stressed in running back room this year. Carson Hansen, one of his greatest qualities, noted by Coach Landry, is that he's really good at getting downhill, getting vertical. How do you get yards? By getting vertical. If you're going side to side, you're not technically gaining yards for the team. Consistency is one of the biggest things for Abu Sama. And then, as I said, he's taking time to learn with Coach Landry. Dylan Lee has some power. From the sounds of it, the guy can move weight in the squat rack. So really excited about that. Obviously, young guy there. Could be a bit of the future. Sounds like Carson Hansen, and I'll close you out with this, is the key, right? So Jake Landry can be this guy, and he's unproven, and maybe all of this doesn't really mean anything if the team doesn't really wins and kind of becomes a bit of a problem. Same thing can be said of, like, if the room doesn't buy in, then it's not good. And it sounds like Carson Hansen is absolutely bought in. Everything he's doing is on championship level. He's elevated the room as a whole. Everyone is bought in right now. That is the most important takeaway from this, is that it seems like the running backs kind of want to be the reason Iowa State wins. I would say more than anything. If not, then just to not be the reason they win. Or to be the reason they lose. I don't know what the best way to say that would be. Sounds like Iowa State running backs are here to bring the boom. Let's leave it at that. I am so pumped up for this team. I am so pumped for everything that they have. I'm counting it. We're so close. We are so genuinely close to Dublin, Ireland, and Iowa State and Kansas State kicking things off literally to the college football season. If you haven't already, be sure to hit subscribe down below. It's completely free. We're so close to 1,000. Let's try to hit that before the game, before this Dublin game. That'd be so cool. That would be so cool. That being said, until next time, Cyclone fans, stay safe out there and sayonara.